I do think that it is manly in the way that, like, my dad would try to fix the sink, and he's not a plumber.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, like, we own the tools, because you can buy tools.
Yes.
Don't just let anybody have the tools. They don't ask you if you're going to tear up your house at all. They'll let you buy the hammer, the screwdriver. They'll let you buy, like, the
hatchet.
And so then you bring it home, and in your head as a man, you're like, I have the tools. So if anything happens, I'm at least halfway there. Never mind the other half is like knowledge. And so then there's like a leaky faucet, and so you get under the sink, you move all the Lysol, all the stuff out of the way, and then you're under there, and it's very uncomfortable. You're like, wow, I can't believe that there are people that do this without complaining. And then the way that thought process.
Here's Trump on Saturday mocking the speech impediment Joe Biden has had since childhood.
2 nights ago, we all heard Crooked Joe's angry, dark, hate-filled rant of a State of the Union address. Didn't it bring us together? Remember, he said, I'm going to bring the country together.
Wow. Wow. You really want to go there? First of all, Biden didn't stutter like that. Second, if you want to make this a word-talking contest, you're one of the weirdest speakers in human history.
He branded himself as the dealmaker, the billionaire outsider who would drain the swamp and rewrite history. But when Josh Johnson and Stephen Colbert tear into Donald Trump, the myth crumbles fast. They expose the chaos, the blunders, and the carnival of contradictions that trail behind him, shredding the illusion of genius he tries to project. From boardrooms to the Oval Office, the comedy lands like a hammer, showing that Trump's empire is built less on strategy and more on spectacle.
Trump knows Epstein so well. They were friends. Trump lived so close to Epstein in Florida that Epstein had to knock on his door and let him know he was on the sex offender registry. Like, that's how close they lived together. He knocked on the door, was like, hi, the court has ordered me to notify you that I'm in the area. I have been convicted of a few crimes, and I left my suit jacket over here last night, so.
Of course, when Trump hasn't been asleep, he's been violating his gag order by posting messages attacking witnesses and prosecutors and jurors. So before testimony resumed today, Judge Merchan finally issued his ruling on those violations, fining Trump $9,000. Now, I know, $9,000 may not seem like a lot to a successful businessman, but what about to Trump?
Donald Trump never enters a room quietly. He storms in like a man who thinks every chandelier should dim on cue and every brass band should play his campaign song just because he showed up. Trump doesn't walk, he parades. And for years, he has paraded through politics, media, and American culture like a peacock who stole feathers from a Las Vegas costume shop. But when Josh Johnson and Stephen Colbert start tearing into him, the feathers start falling off, and what's left isn't majestic. It's hilarious, ridiculous, and undeniably tragic all at once.
They created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake, all caps, Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier that they used on me. And now my so-called friends, this man hurt because my so-called friends, as a world leader, my so-called friends is the most Regina George Mean Girls line I've ever heard in my entire life. My so-called friends is wild.
Josh Johnson wastes no time pointing out that Trump is the first president who behaves less like a statesman and more like a contestant on his own reality show. He doesn't govern, he auditions. Every rally is a season finale. Every press conference a blooper reel. Every tweet an improvised punchline that usually lands like a drunk uncle trying stand-up comedy at Thanksgiving. Josh compares him to a man who stumbled into the Oval Office thinking it was a new wing of Mar-a-Lago.
Also is this man was sitting here knowing that he knows Epstein. He's sitting here knowing that this looks very bad. And he did the DOJ thing, even though it's not directly tied to him, even though the president isn't allowed to interfere. He clearly did the DOJ thing where he told them to shut it down. And now people are rebelling against him. And he's sitting there like, how can I make it DEI?
Stephen Colbert sharpens it further. He paints Trump as the magician who promises to pull a rabbit out of a hat, but ends up yanking out a bag of fast food, waving it around like a Nobel Prize. Trump loves showmanship, but the only trick he's mastered is distraction. Whether it's calling everything the best, repeating himself like a broken infomercial, or creating chaos so thick nobody notices the details, Trump is the king of smoke and mirrors with a gold-plated fog machine.
No! No, you fool! Now there's one less job. Don't you see? You fell into her trap. But it makes sense. He fires anyone who gives him bad news. Mr. Dr. Cardiologist, you clearly rigged my cholesterol to be 1,000 and said my blood type was aioli. You're fired. I happen to know it's honey mustard.
Josh highlights the absurdity of Trump's obsession with superlatives. To him, nothing is ever normal. It's always the biggest, the greatest, the most tremendous. If he built a sandbox, he'd brag it was the most luxurious sandbox in the history of mankind. If he lost a game of Monopoly, he'd declare bankruptcy as a genius business strategy. His world is built on exaggeration so constant that reality has filed a restraining order.
Foreign diplomats, world leaders had a dinner that Trump was at, and they made fun. This is his first term. They made fun of him at the dinner. He could probably hear him in the background. They were laughing. It was like Boris Johnson and Justin Trudeau and other people, and they were over here doing him. They were over here, like just making fun of him hard, cracking up, talking about how he doesn't know how to spell, everything.
Stephen doesn't let Trump's speaking style go unscathed either. Every speech sounds like a parody of itself. Sentences that start strong, collapse halfway through, then restart in a completely different direction. Trump treats grammar like he treats political alliances, optional and mostly ignored. Listening to him talk is like watching a GPS malfunction. Turn left in, tremendous. Actually, we don't turn, we win. The left hates us. Route recalculating. Josh laughs at how Trump sees the presidency as nothing more than brand extension. Josh notes that it's fitting Trump's campaign slogan was printed on merchandise. He's the only president whose greatest legislative achievement might actually be merch sales. Stephen cuts into Trump's fragile ego, pointing out how he constantly demands praise like a toddler who just learned to stack blocks. No compliment is enough. He needs endless affirmation, non-stop applause, and headlines that sparkle.
Clearly, you are not eager to see Kid Rock dance the Nutcracker, but the bill's sponsor says that Trump is a patron of the arts and a staple of the pop culture landscape. I'm sorry, but it's true. Trump is a staple of pop culture. Just last week, he was great on South Park.
If the news doesn't flatter him, it's fake. If polls don't favor him, they're rigged. Trump isn't just insecure. He's the first president whose emotional stability is tied directly to crowd size. The man could rescue a kitten from a tree, but if only 3 people clapped, he'd demand the kitten be put back until CNN aired the story. Josh targets Trump's famous love for fast food, reminding people how surreal it is that the leader of the free world proudly celebrates with towers of hamburgers like he's a frat boy hosting the world's saddest Super Bowl party. It's one thing to have guilty pleasures, it's another to serve a championship team a buffet that looks like the drive-thru exploded. Only Trump could turn the White House dining room into the world's fanciest food court. Stephen dives into Trump's financial mythology. For decades, he sold himself as the self-made billionaire, the genius businessman. But peel back the layers and it looks more like a man who lost casinos, a business where the house literally always wins. Who else could bankrupt a casino and call it strategy? He turned debt into a lifestyle, failure into a headline, and shamelessness into a business plan. Colbert notes that Trump's empire isn't built on success. It's built on rebranding disaster until people confuse it for genius.
A little while later, he hit it. He hit it. I didn't know if it would come up again. I've been waiting. He hit it. He was like, the immigrants are coming, and they are taking the black jobs. I've been wondering what a black job was since the debate, because he said at the debate, and nobody called him on it. Nobody caught it or anything. Black jobs. And then one of the women up there, because it was 3 women interviewing him. 3 black journalists were interviewing him, and one was like, "Sir, what is a black job?" And then he was like,
Josh takes aim at Trump's constant need to compare himself to historical figures. Trump doesn't just see himself as a president. He sees himself as Washington, Lincoln, Churchill, maybe even Moses if you catch him on the right day. Every press conference feels like he's auditioning for Mount Rushmore, except if they carved his face into stone, it would probably come with neon lights and a food court at the bottom. Stephen goes for the jugular on Trump's relationship with the truth. To him, facts are more like clay than stone, bendable, stretchable, and easily reshaped to fit the story he wants to tell. If reality doesn't cooperate, he simply manufactures a new one. Trump doesn't lie in the traditional sense. He creates parallel universes where everything revolves around him as the hero, and the villain is anyone who dares to point out the contradictions. Josh highlights Trump's uncanny ability to turn every problem into someone else's fault. Nothing is ever his responsibility. If the economy struggles, it's the Fed's fault. If his policies flop, it's Congress. If it rains at one of his events, he probably blames Mother Nature for being a Democrat. Trump is like a man who constantly crashes cars and insists the stop signs are biased against him.
Trump's treating Americans like a kid you can bribe with a treat. Allow me to demonstrate what Donald Trump is going for here. I don't care about pedophilia anymore. Delicious.
Stephen Colbert drives it home by pointing out that Trump doesn't just break norms, he treats norms like speed bumps, designed only to be rolled over on the way to the next headline. He thrives in chaos, feeds on attention, and survives by never admitting defeat. He is the living embodiment of the phrase, "fake it till you make it." Except he never made it. He just kept faking it louder until people mistook volume for victory. Together, Josh Johnson and Stephen Colbert shred the myth of Donald Trump. They expose him not as the strongman he pretends to be, but as a fragile showman addicted to attention. They reveal the absurdity of a president who governs like he's still hosting reality TV, who treats policy like improv comedy, and who views every day in office as another episode of a never-ending show where the ratings matter more than the results. The absurdity of Trump's political universe is that it operates less like a functioning government and more like a badly written improv show where every scene must revolve around him. Imagine a country trying to tackle healthcare, education, and infrastructure while its leader is obsessing over crowd sizes from 3 years ago.
Time ago, but according to Epstein's brother Mark Epstein, Jeffrey said he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a crook. Wow! That's extraordinary. Amazing. Jeffrey Epstein breaking it off with you because you're a crook. It's like walking into an intervention organized by Rudy Giuliani.
Josh Johnson paints that with the timing of a seasoned comic, because nothing screams presidential priorities like rerunning the highlight reel of your inauguration crowd, as if that somehow determines the GDP. Colbert doesn't let it slide either. He drags Trump for treating the presidency as a trophy shelf for his ego, turning serious matters into episodes of reality television complete with cliffhangers, catchphrases, and chaos. Then there's the comedy gold of Trump's vocabulary. Johnson points out that it's not just limited, it's aggressively limited, like he's competing with himself to see how many times the word tremendous can cover every conceivable scenario. A job report? Tremendous. This relentless recycling of words isn't accidental. It's the branding strategy of a man who thinks repetition equals truth, hammering away until his followers chant it back like it's gospel. And speaking of gospel, nothing exposes the surreal comedy of Trump's presidency like his bizarre courting of evangelical voters.
So we are doing tariffs?
Damn right we are. I ain't scared of shit.
Not even more expensive housing?
Tariffs are off.
But that will increase the trade deficit.
On again.
But what about the price of breakfast?
Off in the morning, on at night.
But Canada is retaliating.
Off with Canada, on with China. We'll go to war with China. I don't give a f.
Josh, China has nukes.
No tariffs on China. In fact, we're part of China now. All hail President Xi. You're the snake, motherfucker. Get on board.
Josh Johnson lights this up by comparing Trump's attempts at biblical references to a kid bluffing their way through a book report they never read. Remember the infamous 2 Corinthians blunder? Colbert builds on that by joking that the Bible Trump reads probably has pictures, captions, and a foreword by himself. The sheer mismatch between his lifestyle and the values he pretends to champion becomes one of the richest sources of satire because only in Trump's world can casinos, beauty pageants, and Twitter rants somehow coexist under the banner of holiness. But what Johnson and Colbert really zero in on is the art of Trump's victimhood. Nobody plays the martyr with more dramatic flair than a billionaire president sitting in the most powerful office in the world. Every setback is rigged, every investigation is a witch hunt, and every critic is unfair. Josh Johnson skewers this perfectly by pointing out how exhausting it must be to constantly win, but also constantly be the biggest victim in history. Colbert runs with it, suggesting Trump is the only man who could win the lottery and then complain that the numbers were mean to him. This endless cycle of grievance becomes the fuel for his rallies, his interviews, and his entire post-presidency identity. A self-styled underdog who somehow never stops bragging about being the top dog.
Rooms, like they were in the closet. Some of them were in the bathroom. There's all this stuff like that. Now, the speech that he gave, the rally he gave that I was talking about before, was towards the end of his presidency. And I think this is what I think happened. He started bringing up the water pressure. I'm pretty sure he tried to flush documents that day. Before the rally, like they were like, Mr. President, we have to go. Like we have to go. We're gonna be late. And he's like, he read something that didn't seem good. Everybody jokes he can't read. The man can read. He probably read it and was like, this one.
And when Trump tries to spin his business genius, the comedy practically writes itself. Johnson dismantles the myth by reminding everyone that declaring bankruptcy as often as Trump has would disqualify any average person from even applying for a credit card. Colbert takes it a step further, saying Trump's business empire is like a magic trick, where the audience is left wondering how the rabbit and the hat both disappeared. It's a legacy of smoke, mirrors, and lawsuits, dressed up as entrepreneurial brilliance, and Johnson and Colbert don't let a single ounce of that delusion go unchecked. Of course, the social media meltdown side of Trump's persona is a roast feast all on its own. Johnson compares his late-night tweets to a digital drunk dial that the entire world has to endure. Colbert heightens it with the observation that Trump's feed reads like the diary of a high schooler who just discovered sarcasm. These tweets weren't just random outbursts. They often set the tone for global headlines, and the terrifying yet hilarious reality is that nuclear policy was being announced in the same place most people complain about airline food. That blend of comedy and horror is exactly why both comedians have so much material, because the leader of the free world insisted on being the main character of Twitter.
Obama! Thanks, Obama. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration? So I guess they were all in a room in this scenario, and they wrote the files together in tandem. Like Obama just knew that everyone in the Biden administration would be in the Biden administration one day, so he gathered them all together. But this is also before Epstein ever died or anything, so Obama time traveled to like right after to know it would hurt Trump, so then he came back in regular time and he sat down Hillary Clinton, Comey, Brennan, and the loser, he had to get all the losers and criminals of the Biden administration in one room so they could write. Also,
but perhaps the most brutal comedic truth they expose is Trump's relationship with reality itself. Johnson points out how Trump bends facts with the confidence of a magician pulling scarves out of thin air, except the scarves are lies and the audience is the American people. Colbert tears into the absurdity of Trump's alternative facts, mocking the way he doubles down even when caught in the most obvious contradictions. Whether it's weather maps altered with Sharpies or endless claims of record-breaking achievements, the man exists in a self-made bubble where truth is negotiable, and the comedy is in how passionately he sells those distortions to anyone willing to buy in. Even Trump's rallies, designed as showcases of strength, become comedic fodder. Johnson describes them as part rock concert, part therapy session, and part conspiracy seminar, where fans cheer louder for grievances than they do for policy. Colbert leans in, saying the rallies feel less like political events and more like open mic nights where the headliner never writes new material. The jokes are the same, the nicknames are recycled, and the crowd eats it up, proving that Trump isn't just a politician, he's a touring act who refuses to retire.